nezig Zimbabwe gold currency yedu yatiri kusumudza. Munonzwa apa TV yedu pa ZiG yedu ZiG 1 2 makazwanaka imari yedu yoyo ndeyatakusumudza kuti in 2 years
tinopaka waya ZiG yacho varidzi vaya vatori nabasa naye. Tinoonayo vanotungamirira kana vasvika pamisangano vanobudisa ma-US dollar kupa vanhu, asi kana vachiti vamwe shandisai unodirei kuti tishandise mashizha iwo wakabata mari chaiyo.
Said in a previous meeting that if printing money could make nations prosperous, then there would be no nation which is a third world nation. We've learned from past experience that it does not help to print money. Certainly not under my watch. It's not going to happen. Under my watch, we are going to ensure that at any one time, reserve money growth is contained within the limits of the growth in gold and foreign currency reserves that we have. And above all, I don't believe in quasi-fiscal activities. It's not going to happen under my watch. In that respect also, people have said that, well, the problem is that Treasury from time to time will come and borrow money from the central bank. Again, under my watch, if there is going to be any accommodation at all to Treasury, it will be within the limits contained in the Reserve Bank Act, and the Reserve Bank Act is very clear in that respect. The new currency will co-circulate with other foreign currencies in the country.
Now this is the free talk. When the RBZ governor John Chivhayo assumed office, his first job was to announce the monetary policy, which came with it the introduction of the Zimbabwe gold, the ZiG, the new money that we all have known for over the past almost 100 days, and we're using it in our daily transactions. Some have not managed to even see it, touch it and feel it, but have been using it mostly electronically. The swipe, the EcoCash, and other modes of payment that have been happening. The ZiG has been seen as having brought stability to the economy, which was suffering serious hyperinflation just before the introduction of the ZiG. The Zimbabwe dollar that was there, mostly and commonly referred to by many as the RTGS, was losing its value on a daily basis. Business is worried because there's a liquidity crisis. The RBZ is drip feeding money into the market to maintain the stability. Now, on this, the Free Talk, in proud partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation for Freedom, we discuss this issue. Is the ZiG the answer? Is it delivering? Will this last? What do you need to be concerned about as a consumer and a user of the ZiG? Now join me after this break, as on this, the Free Talk, we go economics. Welcome back to this, the Free Talk, in proud partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation for Freedom. Now, this week I'm in conversation with Percy Gwanyanya, an economist and a member of the RBZ monetary policy. And we are going to be discussing your ZiG, your US dollar, and your economy, how it works and if it is working. Now, thank you very much, Persistence, and thank you for joining us on this, the Free Talk.
Thank you, Dara Blessing. Thank you for having me on the program.
Beautiful. Now, Percy, let's just talk as an opening, your brief overview on how the local currency, the ZiG, has performed since its introduction.
After the volatilities that characterized our economy in the first quarter of the year, we have seen a palpable difference in the currency environment, characterized with stability ushered by the introduction of ZiG. Now, the inflation numbers speak to a stable environment at negative 2.4% in May, a month after the introduction of ZiG, and 0% in June. Importantly, we have seen the currency stability. Currency instability has given policymakers and the generality of Zimbabweans a headache. It was making life very difficult for the generality of the Zimbabwean, for business and for everyone in the economy, making our economy an unattractive economy. But it is quite comforting to realize that we have now a modicum of stability in the economy. The panic that characterized the economy, especially at every time one is to receive ZiG payment, where one would, at every opportunity, seek to dispose of that ZiG, is no longer happening at the ordinary level and in the economy, which is good news and which is quite comforting that we now have an economy characterized with a measure of stability.
Mm-hmm. Now let's talk about this stability. How is it stability when the RBZ is afraid of giving people access to money?
I don't know what you mean by afraid to give people access to money. ZiG comes in two forms, just like any other currency. It is in electronic form and in cash, notes and coins. Your question should also be looked in light of where the global economy and clearly economies are trending. They are trending towards cash-light economies. But it doesn't mean that there is no need to ensure adequate cash levels to liquefy the economy and take care of the cash requirements of the country. In terms of the electronic form, I think you may want to agree with me that there is no challenge of accessibility and availability of ZiG in electronic form. The only challenge at the moment, which I'm sure is being addressed by the central bank, has been the access of cash to or by the generality of the economy, which access is also affected or reflective of the structure of our economy. The economy is now highly informalized, and a number of us are not banked, and as such may not be having access to the formal channel that the ZiG cash notes and coins was being availed through. So the ZiG notes and coins was naturally injected through banks.
So you admit this, that the RBZ is excluding major players from the economy, because you say most of us are not banked, right? And therefore, if there's cash is not available, it means most of us are excluded from the matrix of using the local currency. You admit that?
I have indicated that the current challenge relating to the accessibility of cash, and obviously even including those that have access to the banks, but for one reason or the other were not withdrawing the cash. The central bank has taken initiatives to address this inadequacy. You have heard about the intervention through HomeLink, which was also expanded to include even setting up of some access points, some kiosks at the bus terminus, the shopping centers, etc. And these are efforts, increasing efforts that we're seeing coming from the central bank to ensure the accessibility of cash to those that would ordinarily have limited access to the cash. And we're seeing that happening every day and intensifying as time goes on.
Does it make sense that the central bank goes to the extent of dishing out cash through HomeLink and kiosk points when there are banks in this country? Well, what is the role of the RBZ in trying to distribute money? It has no faith in banks?
Yeah, but you have pointed out that there is a challenge, a visible challenge in the economy. Whilst the task is mainly supposed to be done through banks, but if it has not happened, the blame naturally comes back to the central bank. So these are interventions that the central bank has taken on account of failure of the market. But you are right
so you're saying banks are failing to distribute cash right now. Are you saying that? Let us be clear, because our listeners want to understand what you mean when you say market. Banks, let's be clear. Banks are failing, or market?
So the RBZ has indicated that they've injected adequate cash to take care of the requirements of the economy, or in line with the internationally acceptable ratios. But the banks have not distributed the cash, all of the cash that the central bank is injected in the economy. Hence the intervention by the central bank.
So banks are sitting with vaults of cash and are not distributing this money.
So it could be a case of market failure. You always want to understand why is it that whilst the central bank claims or has injected the cash in the economy, but the intended objective, that is getting that cash to the ordinary person, even those in the forgotten corners of the world, has not been achieved. So whilst that is happening, you always want to intervene for smooth functionality of the market. So you asked me a question, why does it seem normal that the central bank has to intervene with the HomeLink and other initiatives? It is always the role of the central banks or government to intervene where they see some measure of market failure, which could be the case currently.
I've been alive for the past 44 years of my life, and never has the central bank directly put money outside banking channels, we never had a cash problem.
No.
Why now? Because we have seen the local currency being circulated. In fact, when in around 1999, people were less banked than they are right now. But still, there was cash in every home across this country. Why now?
HomeLink is a financial institution. So it's not like the central bank is injecting the cash outside the financial sectors.
I mean, we all know who owns HomeLink. And it's clear it's the RBZ. It's an arm of RBZ. And why is the RBZ taking away the job that should be done by banks? Because financial institutions, by their nature, it is their job to ensure that there's cash, there's liquidity that is circulating on the market. Is the RBZ...
I guess you are asking me why the market has failed. And
I'm asking you why the RBZ is failing to make the market work. Because they have instruments. Are they spineless?
So what we have seen is the challenge that we're facing is grown up to become a structural challenge. So if I'm talking about informalization, it's now part of the structure of the economy. And in an informalized economy, these things are bound to happen. These inefficiencies are bound to happen. That's why informalization ranks, or addressing informalization ranks top priority, or should be ranking top priority of the government or the policymakers, which also means that the cash problems is beyond the monetary policy. It extends into even the structure of the economy, even that the level of industrialization in the economy has got a significant contribution to the performance of the financial markets. So all you can conclude out of that is that the cash challenge is beyond the Reserve Bank, is beyond the monetary issues.
So I would hazard to say that you're doing this as the RBZ, you're part of the RBZ. You're doing this so that government continues to collect the 2% MTD tax, because once there's a lot of cash, people are not going to be using the banks, they're going to be transacting, and you can't collect their money, and that will affect government. So this is deliberate, to make the people suffer so that the government continues to collect via transfers.
I don't think the reasoning adds up, because if the market is failing to access the cash from the banks, or what that means is it may ignite increased disengagement with the banks. So if the relationship between the banks and the ordinary public or the transacting public is worsened, we're likely to see growing informalization instead of reducing the informalization levels in the economy.
Don't you think that that 2% actually pushes for the growing of informalization, that 2% tax, and further that the cash is not available, there's liquidity crunch, and people now don't want to put their money in the bank because they don't know if they can get it?
Yeah, you know, I think we are in a catch-22 situation as regards the intermediated money transfer tax, which you referred to as the 2% tax. In that, the government is currently facing fiscal challenges as revenue underperforms on account of external factors, mainly drought and even the softening global commodity prices. And this could be the reason why Treasury insisted on the 2% intermediated money transfer tax, because it also happens at a time where the government is embarked on national projects of capital nature that cannot easily be abandoned. So you may want to agree with me that the government would seek to also collect revenue through transactions in an economy that is highly informalized. But like you have indicated, the challenge is if the 2% is seen as disincentivizing banking, it may also worsen the problem of informalization in the economy. But as it is currently, you may want to agree with me that there is no guarantee that there will be immediate correction of the informalization problem through a review of the 2% intermediated money transfer tax. But again, not to suggest that there is no need for the view of the intermediated money transfer tax, but I'm saying we need to be more careful about the timing. It's all about the timing of when to review the intermediated money transfer tax. I have spoken about the project that the government has already embarked on and which we are seeing, and these are giving us, we're seeing tangible results. So no one would want to just abandon these projects on account of revenue challenges, given the tight fiscal positions that confronts the government, and at a time where no one is guaranteed that by doing that there will be an improvement, at least in the short term, to sustain the progress that is already there on infrastructure projects and even on other government projects.
But isn't it common sense that if I'm going to be losing 2% of my money just simply by transacting and not getting value to myself, I would rather abandon the banking sector? Doesn't that make sense?
Yeah, it may sound common sense.
In fact, I spoke to someone in the hoteling industry, and they told me that the 2% IMT tax actually, in some organizations, is as big as a budget allocation for some spaces. And for instance, a whole organization losing over, say, 50,000 United States dollars in tax.
Yeah, equally, the worries of government could also be by reviewing or removing that intermediated money transfer tax. What guarantee do we have that that the sale market would immediately increase their formal banking?
I'm saying
in an economy where informalization has become structural. I've spoken of informalization as now a structural challenge. By characterizing it as a structural problem, it means that its uprooting is beyond the efforts of the...
Percy, I know people who used to sell tomatoes on the street corner who would go and bank their money because they trusted banks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the issue is people don't have trust in what you guys do in your suits, do they?
Yeah. So if they don't have, it's a reality that confronts us.
So why don't you deal with the tax issue and the trust issues and not punish people for banking?
So regaining confidence or the trust, admittedly, is not a one-day job. It requires consistent efforts over time to get people believe again, get people trust again. That's the reason why I'm saying there is no guarantee in the short term that you can regain confidence, that you can regain trust.
Percy, we've been talking about this trust issue since Gideon Gona. The first day John Mnangagwa got into office, you were talking about trust. So let's not talk about short term, because John Mnangagwa served 10 good years in that office. That's not short term. Now we have John Mshayabanu in. So let us not talk about short term and stuff like that. If you guys at the monetary levels wanted to regain people's trust, you would have done that by now. You don't have the will, do you?
Yeah, so that's why I continue to want to emphasize that the challenges, especially of monetary nature, financial nature, if a country has gone through financial challenges or crisis, they are very difficult to remedy. I always give an example of Germany, which went through hyperinflation many years ago, and there are still visible signs of trauma that the people suffered from hyperinflation. That is, the level of demand for cash is still high. Usage of cash in Germany is still high. The same extends to Zimbabwe. We went through currency challenges, financial challenges of historic nature, and therefore it is expected that the normalization takes time for people to believe again, to trust again. So we don't want to act like as if we don't know how these things work. So it takes time.
If I say to you, Percy, that the reason why there's a liquidity crunch is not because the market has failed, it's because the RBZ has failed. Because in its own words, the RBZ says it is drip feeding money into the market, which basically means they are not putting money, they're drip feeding it in simple English. So it is John Mshayabanu's fault that there's a liquidity crunch. What would you say?
I think you tend to forget more than the ordinary people do. The ordinary people, they still remember vividly the challenges they suffered at the height of monetary expansion and unmeasured increase in even cash, both quantum of cash and denominations of cash. That has become a historic occasion that still, even globally, is we are remembered for that period. You know, I have come across folks that were even looking for our higher denominations, saying to me that they've got a market in the museums. So what that only says is the period we have gone through is a period that is very difficult for any person who experienced that to forget. And at the height of that period was high levels of cash, quantum of cash, and denominations of cash. Because of that, and because humans are creatures of memory, the central bank has chosen a drip feeding approach.
I don't want to dispute that, Percy. My point is, you said that the market is failing to distribute cash. On the other hand, you are saying they have chosen a drip feeding of money into the market. Now, I mean, these are two very contrasting statements. Because if the market is failing, that means the money is there. But how can it be there when the RBZ says it's drip feeding? So, in simpler terms, the RBZ is the one that is not putting money in the market. Is it not? That's the question.
Maybe I need to clarify. By drip feeding, I don't mean suffocating. Drip feeding is not suffocating, but drip feeding is injecting the cash in a manner that does not spin the market out of control. As I have already indicated, the central bank is advised that the cash injected in the economy so far ticks all boxes in relation to the expected ratios of cash to the monetary base in the economy.
So it ticks all the boxes in the books, but not in the people's pockets. So not convenient for the users.
Yeah, so which then speaks to the efficiency of distribution of the cash at bank level.
No, but let's agree on something.
Yes.
Here. Let's agree on something here. Why, if the RBZ has ticked all the boxes, it's talking about drip feeding? It beats me, because drip feeding means you've got a lot of it somewhere and you're not releasing it, right? Because this comes from drip irrigation, where there's a whole lot of water in the reservoir and you are only giving enough for survival, not for ticking all the boxes, but enough for survival while you are saving in the reservoir. Why is the RBZ saving the money in the reservoir? No. To control inflation?
I think let's use the word measured manner. The central bank is injecting cash in a measured manner, meaning that they have disciplined their injection of cash in the economy. They are doing that in a more measured and more disciplined way.
But the consumers are suffering, Percy. That's the problem. That's the issue that we want to address.
They would suffer more if that is not done in a measured manner.
How?
Because it spins the market out of control. Because it spikes inflation, currency volatilities.
The RBZ's only tool of controlling value held in the ZiG is by drip feeding?
No. Not as such. You seem to concentrate on cash, yet money is more of the electronic money.
But it's not even there. The electronic money, Percy, in ZiG, it's not even there, right? People are struggling to find the ZiG. And the RBZ governor has actually been saying this, that the ZiG is going to be difficult to find and it's going to be expensive, and when you want to pay your QPDs, you won't have it, and people will come hunting for it. I mean, he said this, so this is not something that I'm making up.
Blessing. Money doesn't grow on trees. Money should increase in line with the increase in economic activities. Don't suggest that the central bank is to print money. We should try always and avoid the temptation of suggesting printing of money. We need the economic activities to drive the increase in money supply.
Government says through the finance minister, says that this economy is growing. We have been told the growth by 5% and stuff like that. In fact, President Mnangagwa said Zimbabwe is the fastest growing economy in Africa. And you are telling us here that something else. So, I mean, let's address those things, because they confuse me.
Yeah, but you may want to agree with me that just recently, when we did our interviews, the main concern, the key highlights were about the increase in money supply. And I think we have now gotten to a point where that challenge is being addressed. And even now, the increase in money supply is something that we continuously and closely monitor as the Monetary Policy Committee. As we started with ZiG, that is on the 5th of April this year, the reserve money supply, ZiG reserve money supply, was around 90 million US dollars. You remember that. But as I'm talking to you now, the ZiG money supply, reserve money supply, has gone up to around $186 million. So it's not like the money supply is not increasing. It is increasing. But we always want that to increase in line with the increase in economic activities. So if it is growing outside the growth of the economy or the growth of economic activities, it becomes inflationary. As they say, inflation is everywhere and anywhere a monetary phenomena. So from where I sit, I view the greatest assignment currently that the Monetary Policy Committee should be working on is to ensure that the money supply continues to grow in line with the economic fundamentals. We have introduced ZiG, and the operation of the ZiG requires that the ZiG money supply growth, reserve money supply growth, should always be covered by the reserves, the foreign reserves, that is the US dollars and the precious minerals. Currently, as I'm talking to you, I've indicated to you that the ZiG money supply growth is now around 186 or below 190 million or 190 million US dollar equivalent. But the reserves, the governor has recently advised the level of reserves at $370 million, meaning that we are still within the cover. The cover, even the SI itself, say SI's KIST of 2024, gives us the parameter within which we should work, give us the parameters within which the reserve, ZiG reserve money supply growth should grow. If this management of the monetary affairs of the country are to result in a stable, sustained, stable environment.
So some argue that the foreign currency reserve that the governor speaks about is actually non-existent because banks are failing to give business foreign currency. The Confederation of Zimbabwe Industry has indicated that their clients, that the business industry is failing to get money from their banks, the United States dollars. Yet, on the day that the ZiG was announced, the RBZ governor said, you walk into your bank, if you have any foreign receipt that needs to be paid, I will pay it. Did he lie?
So, you must also reflect on the monetary aggregates in the economy to be able to pick some of these trends in the economy and to conclusively make some judgments about whether certain things are happening or not. I'm tempted to look at the money supply in the economy and what constitutes it, and then make inferences to what is happening on the interbank market. The total money supply in this economy is largely made of foreign currency. Out of the $38.98 billion ZiG as at May, 31.8 thereabouts was US dollars, and this means that there was only a small amount in ZiG. So meaning the monetary base of the country is mainly US dollars. What that means is you and me and the rest of the economy, most of us are transacting in US dollars. So if we are transacting in US dollars, and if the US dollar, ZiG US dollar money supply ratios are more than 80% or close to 90%, what that means is the demand for foreign currency on the interbank should also reflect these ratios, that most of us are generating foreign currency from our own activities, and therefore should be able to import with our foreign currency that we are generating. So this gets me to think that some of the statements, I'm not saying it's not true, but they seem to be over-exaggerated about the extent to which the markets are or should be accessing foreign currency from the interbank and or are failing to access foreign currency from the interbank.
Are you aware that most people, once they receive ZiG, they'd rather transact with it than save it? Once they have US dollars, they save it, which basically means that industry that is trading is getting most of that 20% ZiG. And they're not getting the US because the US stays on the informal market. Would you agree with me?
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Therefore, the inferences are correct, if you agree with that statement.
I agree with you, but I don't agree with you on the inferences. I agree with you in the sense that we have always seen the multiple currency system as not as the best currency regime, but as a transitional currency regime. So in a multiple currency system, we have allowed the US dollar and the Zimbabwean, the ZiG to co-circulate. We have allowed an international currency and a currency where people have low confidence in, low trust in, to co-circulate. Is that not obvious that the preference is always the US dollar? Is that not obvious that upon receiving the ZiG, one would seek to dispose it of for a more preferred currency? So that's a problem we have as a country, that we're using the multiple currency system. But we're using the multiple currency system because we also have another problem that we want to cure, which I said, the confidence. So we're using the multiple currency system to nurse the confidence. We're nursing the confidence because it's a reality.
When you say transitional, let's talk about it. How many years is transitional? We've been using the multi-currency system since 2008, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so what it all tells you is...
There's nothing transitional about it?
What it all tells you...
That's what it tells me.
These challenges are not peculiar to Zimbabwe alone. Have you heard that economists commonly believe that once dollarized, it is extremely difficult for a country to de-dollarize? This is what we are experiencing as a country. We are experiencing the common belief that once dollarized, it is extremely difficult for a country to de-dollarize. This is exactly...
Is it a belief or it's something that is actually really...
Yeah, it is reality.
Okay.
It is reality. So it only shows the enormity of the task ahead of us.
Okay, I mean, I want us to talk about the issues that you raised in your opening statement. You said that there's relative stability. There's stability, rather. And I'm struggling to find the stability in terms of what you say, because you also admit that only about 10% of our transactions is in the local currency. And all of our prices in any shop that you walk in, most of them are pegged in the United States dollars. In fact, prices track the United States dollar than anything else. So is the stability on ZiG, or the stability is on the US dollar? I want to understand that.
So you have mentioned relative stability. It means the stability is relative to a certain period. And the period we're coming from, which is the first quarter of the year, despite the monetary aggregates remaining the same, that is relating to dollarization, our levels of dollarization have not significantly changed, but the level of volatilities compared to the previous quarter have significantly improved. So we now have a significantly improved environment, a stable environment this second quarter compared to the first quarter of the year.
Let us talk about the projects that you have been talking to me about, Percy. The capital projects that government is doing. The roads on a cash basis, how sustainable is that?
It also reflects the challenges that confronts us as an economy. Whilst that is not sustainable, you must ask yourself, so which is sustainable, and how tenable is that sustainable option?
So
is it available to us?
The former finance minister, Tendai,
yes,
has said that this, especially these capital projects, cash capital projects, are the major drivers of inflation, because most of the times, because government is paying mostly in local currency. So say the project is for 10 million United States dollars and they are paid in ZiG. The first thing they do is they look for the USD on the market, and that drives up.
So I would
Do you agree with that?
I would have appreciated it when one suggests that when one argues that the way the infrastructure is funded is not sustainable, but proffers a solution, sustainable
let's talk
solution
let's talk
funding,
about the issue this first. Is it correct? Is it correct that government, when it pays these contractors, it pushes inflation? It has done so in the past. Is it correct? I'll come to the solution because it was proffered. I'll tell you the solution.
It is not the best, but is the available option that we have.
Does
currently
it push inflation
as the economy? It pushes the inflation, yes, but the challenge now is on policymakers to do that in a manner that does not drive or upset the market. So you need to now find a critical balance between infrastructure, your aggression on infrastructure, or how you fund that. That's why one of the milestones in the 100 years that you talked about of a Reserve Bank, or the introduction of the new currency regime, is that there's been reactivation of the Liquidity Management Committee. The Liquidity Management Committee is now more active to deal with the issues of lumpy, huge payments that ordinarily happen to the contractors. But even that...
That's the drip feeding?
But it talks about
and you have
managing the quantum of payments, the frequency of payments. Instead of you paying 1 billion ZiG at one go, you can choose to break that into smaller amounts over time.
What effect does this have? What effect does this have, right, on the business itself? Because you are talking about increased economic productivity, right? Mm-hmm. On the other hand, so that we have value in our money, right? And on the other hand, the same people have put another committee in place that is stifling businesses and throttling them to the extent that the economic activity that you're talking about is stifled. So what are you guys doing exactly? Because you're giving it one hand and taking it
I don't know. I don't think the purpose of the committee is to stifle business, but to manage liquidity.
But when someone has done their job, they must be paid.
To manage, yes, they should be paid.
So why are you balancing to say let's not pay them at once when you know what you owe them? So most of these companies are struggling to pay their workers right now. The Herald Zim papers, right, produced 2 different front pages. One had a story that government owes Zim papers 1 billion, right, and it's affecting company operation, right? And mind you, I mean, you're an economist, you know this better than me. Once you've made a sale, Zimra wants its tax, and it will start charging you penalties the moment you don't deliver their money. Yet someone is sitting in some committee saying, let's manage liquidity, let's not pay their money. Yet someone is suffering penalties. I mean, let's talk about these facts.
So you are faced with 2 challenges. Mm-hmm. The one is you want to pay those that have done work in time and maybe in a currency, in the local currency. But if you do that, you may cause involatilities in the economy, right? So the other situation is you want to manage the payments of those that have provided the services in a way that as you pay them in a stable currency. So the choice is yours. Do you want to pay immediately and stock inflation, or to do that in a manner that manages the liquidity to the benefit of stability? I think you would choose the latter. Do you know that the contractors you're talking about are now having to also come up with their financing of project, and they have accepted that. That's why there has been overwhelming response on the major capital projects, especially the road projects. So they are bringing their finances. So they are financing themselves, and they are happy with that because they know when they are paid, whenever they are going to be paid, they will be paid in a stable currency. So it's the market which accepted the model. So we see a situation of continuous improvement. Given the constraints that the government faces with an inappropriate funding structure for infrastructure, but it has sought not to abandon the infrastructure, which is permanent. When you have a road, you have got a permanent asset, and which you are able to, at any given time or at some time in the future, to even monetize that road and be able to attend to other pressing infrastructure or even government needs. So they've chosen to manage instead of abandon.
Percy, there needs to be a balance.
Well done. That's exactly the issue.
The balance is that people's lives must go on, even as capital projects are happening.
Yes.
People's lives are not going on. Is that not the problem? Where you used to have big business, great means, truettes, now you have tuck shops. Where you used to have people paying tax, now you don't have people paying tax. And the economy, in as much as you use big words as economists, and the people are not feeling it in their pockets. Now, where is the balance?
Yeah, so you may want to know that these economic challenges are not only happening in Zimbabwe.
That doesn't make us sleep better,
yes,
does it?
Yes. The global economy is also going through challenges, and some of the challenges that the global economy is going through are affecting us as the Zimbabwean economy. An example is
we are affected,
global commodity
we are affected
prices.
by a government that pays 7 million to people and never get delivery. We are affected by a government that buys a laptop that is worth 1,000 United States dollars for 9,000 United States dollars. That is what is stealing money from the doctor at Paradinyato's pocket. That is what is taking my IMTT tax. And let's address that. Let's not talk about Let's not talk about smoke and mirrors. I want you and me here to have a discussion that talks to the common man on the street out there, so that they begin to understand how their lives can be better.
True, we do not condone nefarious activities that affect the fiscus. We cannot condone that, but I'm also trying to give you the bigger picture of the nature of challenge that we face. That is also another structural challenge you have pointed out. It speaks to the structure of the economy now. That even the Vision 2030 itself identified corruption as a key issue that we also need to deal with. And I think the message is we need to make sure that we wholeheartedly deal with this problem of corruption. But also, there are other economic challenges that confronts us that I'm trying to explain to you, that the way you view them is also, you also need to revise the way you review.
I want you to convince the people who are watching and listening so that they're able to revise. Right? This is the reason why I'm giving you these questions, and this is the reason why I'm putting this before you, so that if you give them responses that make sense to them, they might revise their thinking. Right?
So firstly, the first thing is turnaround cannot be achieved overnight. Stability is not without some trade-off. So what is the trade-off of stability? You are talking about the ordinary person suffering or failing to make it. It also reflects that stability is taking toll on the ordinary person's life. Because in the past, some of the economic activities that we're seeing are economic activities that were being driven by instability. At every moment you seek to dispose your local currency, as you have indicated. So business would record booming sales. But are these real sales? So when you stabilize the economy, you go into some stabilization mode and normalization mode. So when the economy normalizes, the extra fate of economic activity is going to be eroded away. And this is what we are seeing. The challenges and the pain that we seem to be feeling reflect the stability that we're going through. It is the trade-off for the stability. So clearly what this shows you is there is nothing for free. It's a give and take arrangement. So we are trying to stabilize the economy, but it cannot happen without some measure of reduced economic activity.
But why is this stability? Why is it this stability, Percy, is only painful to the common man on the street? I mean, the who's are buying cars and donating them like confetti. From what we have come to learn, proceeds from government departments, from the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, for crying out loud, 43 million United States dollars gone, right? Over things that could have been done by at least around 20 million United States dollars. Parliamentarians were elected in right now. They have brand new vehicles. The ministers that are there, oh God, the SUVs that they drive, you would be amazed. Yet, the pain is being felt by a doctor who's giving service at Parelinyatwa, by a teacher who's teaching at a rural school in Uzumba Maramba Fungwe. And you tell me that there must be a trade-off for the teacher and not for the politician.
So all what that says is stability, which you were mainly ascribing to the central bank management, is beyond finance and economics. There are certain issues outside finance and economics that have an impact.
What are those issues, Percy?
The issues you're talking about. The issues you're talking about. So that's why they become priority. They should be priority to deal with. And they are also reflective of the structure of the economy. So that's why I indicated to you.
So if these issues are not dealt with, Percy, let us talk about.
They have to be.
If they're not dealt with, how good is the ZiG?
The ZiG, success of ZiG, it drives from the contribution of each and everyone in the economy. I think I've remarked that on the introduction of the ZiG, that the success of ZiG is not only the RBZ's baby. It is our baby. It is all of us as Zimbabweans.
At the moment, it looks like it's the police and drip feeding.
You know, in every...
Can you convince me that
every monetary regime...
Can you convince me that it's not just the police and drip feeding?
Go everywhere you want. Lowliness should be dealt with by respective arms of the government.
Now the question is, at the moment, the RBZ, the ZiG is being backed by drip feeding and baton sticks. Can you convince me and those who are watching that it's not true?
I'm saying, by its very nature, a currency is a legal tender. So by the mere fact that it is a legal tender, it doesn't allow anyone to just willy-nilly exchange that currency.
With what?
Or with no regard to law.
I mean, how do you...
The currency is to be exchanged. There are parameters, there are regulations that governs a country. There must be a currency. They must be respected.
Just if you give me, for instance, 10 United States dollars, right now, if you give me 10 United States dollars for something that is worth 5 United States dollars, and I give you the change in ZiG, is that a crime?
It's not a crime. But
I've changed, I am not a Beru, but I've changed your 5 United States dollars into local currency.
That's why the business is to use the exchange rate, a regulated exchange rate. So there is an exchange rate that is regulated by the respective SI.
So if the United States dollar is legal currency in Zimbabwe, it's a legal tender in Zimbabwe, why would you arrest anyone who gives me 100 United States dollars and I give them back 100 United States dollars worth of ZiG in their phone?
I don't think they arrest you.
What happens? Because we have people who have been labeled. We have people who have been labeled money changers.
Now, as long as if that is happening as change for a product that would have been bought, I don't think it's a problem if you're doing that at the regulated exchange rate. But true, exchanging money without the license of exchanging foreign currency, trading foreign currency, is not lawful, is unlawful. It is unlawful.
But that's what I want to understand. What is, if you give me 10 United States dollars, I give you change, you $5 in ZiG, I have exchanged your money.
Yes,
I mean,
Papa,
let's not split hairs here. I have exchanged your money. You gave me 5 United States dollars. I gave you back local currency in ZiG. I've unintentionally become a Berudi change.
No, I don't think you are understanding that.
So the crime is what?
As long as you're doing that at the regulated exchange rate, right?
So I can become a Berudi change on myself as long as I'm doing this at a regulated exchange rate. It's fine.
I don't think if you are not licensed to exchange money and you go into a business of exchanging money, for what reason would you be doing that?
Look, you would exchange money if you go to South Africa. If you go to South Africa, for instance, right?
Yes, in the normal course of doing business, you want change in another currency, right? You should use the regulated exchange rate.
What I'm saying is, when you go to South Africa, you walk into South Africa, and this is a matter that is before that has been argued in the courts, and I'm yet to hear the judgment. But if you go to South Africa, and I produce 10 United States dollars over the counter, they'll tell me to go to the Peru so that I get rands and I can trade, because the United States dollar is not legal tender in South Africa, right? In Zimbabwe, United States dollar is used to buy tomatoes on the streets. Yeah, it's legal tender. So you cannot therefore tell someone that you cannot freely transact and exchange. How are you exchanging foreign currency when it's not foreign currency? Because it's a local legal tender. That's all I'm saying.
But Dara Blessing, you must understand that we are in a multiple currency system.
Exactly.
There are regulations governing the operations of the multiple currency system. So you need to respect those regulations.
So my question put differently, do they make sense?
The regulations?
Yes.
Yeah, that's why we're saying there's agents. There's agents to trade ourselves out of the multiple currency system.
So they don't make sense. That's why there's the agency.
That's why I've indicated to you that even the interbank itself, where we have the US dollar as a legal tender that can be used in transactions, it is very difficult for the two currencies to co-circulate. But they co-circulate because of the operation of the multiple currency system. And there may be need for the country to urgently move out of the multiple currency system.
Because staying there and using those regulations don't make sense to them. I mean, they're not making sense to me. I can give you change, but I can't change your money.
Oh, it is very difficult to manage. It is very difficult operating the multiple currency. Admittedly, multiple currency system is very difficult to operate in. It is very difficult to manage. The best currency regime, that's why countries all over the world use a monocurrency system. They have their own local currency and they use foreign currency for foreign payments. That's the reason. But what we have is is a compromise. We are in a compromise where we have allowed the use of multiple currencies.
Let me just talk lastly, Percy. President Emerson Mnangagwa made an announcement, and they said that even before 2030, even though there's a statutory instrument, he can actually call for the end of the use of the US dollar in this market. What does that do to business?
I think the same challenges that were going in your head are the same challenges that the president was trying to ruminate, that this multiple currency system is very difficult to work with. It's very difficult to sustain, and therefore there is urgency to ensure that we get the conditions
but
monocurrency system.
My question is, what does this do to business? You're an economist. You advise business.
I think what is emphasizing is the need.
It's not about what is emphasizing. What does this do to business? That's the question.
It signals business. We take this as a signaling sentiment to the market that there is urgency for us in whatever we do to migrate out of this unsustainable multiple currency system.
It doesn't rattle business, doesn't rattle the market in any way?
Yeah, if it does, but I see that as signaling
because
the market.
When this statutory instrument was introduced, and I remember you spoke about it, I spoke to you, and you said this statutory instrument is very important because it gives stability, right? You said that it allows people to be able, business and even those who advance loans, to know that their loans, if they are going to issue a US dollar loan, it has to be recalled by a certain period, and this gives stability, right? And now I'm asking you the same question. You're dithering. Why?
Yeah, but I think there's always need to keep on reminding, because remember, we had initially a deadline.
The head of state doesn't
a headline of it was 2025. It lapsed that deadline, and we now have another deadline. So I think there's need to keep on reminding each other that
the head of state doesn't.
The time is ticking.
Why didn't the head of state remind people about 2030 instead of saying Kananda Funga? In a country where laws and money has been introduced through a statutory instrument, presidential powers amendment, I mean, Percy, we can do better. That's not reminding. That's a threat.
Yeah, I don't know how you took it, but I took it as an urgent reminder.
I want to thank you very much, Persistent Kwanyanya, for having this conversation with me around our currency and our economy. But before I let you go, Percy, just look the people of Zimbabwe, in the eye. If there is anything from your heart that you need to tell Zimbabweans, this is an opportunity to do so. Just under a minute, Percy.
Yeah, the journey to stability, permanent stability, admittedly, has not been easy. The ordinary people have been affected. They continue to bear the burden of currency instability and efforts to stabilize the economy. Admittedly, again, mistakes have been made during the way, and but we see some efforts to also correct the mistakes and perfect ourselves from the policy makers' point of view. So it appears it's a never-ending journey, but I'm hopeful we'll get there. But this calls for each and every one of us to summon a new spirit. Not only the policymaker, not only you, not only me, not only the head of state, but every one of us. We are happy to talk about what others have done, but in our small way, there is a contribution that we do to the current stability or volatilities of this country. So if we, all of us, do what is expected of us, I think we'll get there one day.
Amazing. So the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. Journey to current stability starts with ZiG. But that journey appears to be the journey of the poor who are heavily affected. We have seen those mighty and in power, every time they put their hands in their pockets and pull out wads of cash, it's never the local currency. We have seen our teachers in schools, our doctors, our civil servants, their earnings and their savings being eroded. But the RBZ monetary policy member here who has been speaking to me, and economist Pesi Kwanyanya, has believes that we're moving in the right direction. I mean, if the ZiG works, it improves our lives too. We are Zimbabweans and this is our country. If the economy in our country is stable, it gives all of us a chance to live the lives that we want to live. This will always be the Free Talk. And I, your host as usual, Dara B. Now thank you very much for joining us on this, the Free Talk in partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation for Freedom and Heart and Soul TV and radio. Now please don't forget to just press the subscribe button on our YouTube channel so that you grow us and we continue to deliver these quality discussions and incisive debates that affect our nation, that answer the so what and tell you why you should care. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, my brother.
Beautiful.
Good.